Welcome to the segment called Mrs. and Mr. Right. Today I have Coach with me. I'll give him a second to introduce himself and who he is. But the topic is there such thing as that perfect person for you? Like one person that was created specifically for you is the gist of it. Because I've talked to a few people, mostly believers, who think that God created only one person for you. And I don't fully agree with that. So I was curious to understand your perspective and kind of pick your brain a little bit on that aspect of what you believe in relationships. So before we get started, who are you? Just a little bit about you, your name, and then we'll get started.
Okay. My name is Daryl Baylark. I've been coaching youth sports here in Arizona since we've been here over the past 3.5 decades, and that's why most people just call me Coach D.
All right. Okay, so the question, do you think there's one individual for one person? So via a girl for one boy or one boy for one girl? What are your thought process behind that?
I don't believe that, honestly. Not the one person for one person thing, just simply because there are, just in the United States alone, there's over 400 million people just in the United States. So if it's one person for one person, I can't get down with that, just simply because there are too many people on the planet to think that there's only one person that's your one person. That makes no logical sense.
Okay, so you don't believe in the one person, but you do believe in soulmates. What is the difference between a soulmate and that aspect of one person for one person in your perspective?
Your soulmate is someone that's down with you when it comes to the struggle, okay? And that struggle is life. So if you can find the person that fits and meshes with you in terms of your thought process and her thought process, or if it's, a person that's not, heterosexual, when it's two guys or two women, whatever the case is, when you find that person that's down with you for the struggle, whatever y'all's struggle is, that could be your soulmate, if you put the work in to make it happen.
Okay, so when you first started to talk to a significant other, I think a lot of times people make themselves out to be so much better than they are. Okay.
Yes.
So I want to hear your aspect of whenever you do get in scenarios like that, because I think a lot of either men or women get tricked into get into a relationship before because they think someone is a certain way, and now they've been together for maybe a few months and they almost feel like, okay, well, I'm already locked into the situation. How do you navigate that scenario to where, like, at one point they were this person, and at this point now there's someone completely different? How do you either leave that kind of relationship, or how do you sit there and try to work it out?
Well, that's for me personally, and I know there's some sociological issues with this. There's some religious issues with this, and there's some family debate going on about this all the time. But me personally, I feel that a young couple should always live together for whatever that period of time is that they require to actually get to know each other. Okay. Now, I know there was a movie about something about this where they say things like, when you first meet a person, you're actually meeting their representative. Okay. You're not actually meeting that person.
Okay.
You're meeting their representative. So, we're out in public. I see you at the mall. I see you at a club. I see you at, something to do with work, and then you attract me. Okay. So I come over and I start talking to you, and then I find out that, okay, I'm a regular everyday working dude and I got a job making dollars an hour. But because you are so attractive, I come over to you as a female and I start kicking it with you. And then I find out that you're an attorney and you work for one of the big firms in downtown city, wherever you live. So now I feel like, okay, she's really out of my class because of what class she's kicking it in financially, but I'm feeling her. Yeah. So what I've got to do is I've got to impress upon her that I'm not this dude that work at Home Depot, which really, that's who I am.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to put up a front, and I'm going to have her meet my social representative so I can kind of bring her in, because I want to make this work. Now, what's going to happen is when she realizes I make $10.50 an hour, is she gonna really still be down with me? Because I lied and said I'm the manager at Home Depot, not the actual stock boy.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you meet someone, you typically meet their representative, and it takes time to get to know who that person is as a person. If you live together for a significant period of time, you are going to get to know that person ins and outs. Okay. One of the things that I always say to people, to get them to understand, like the relationship that I got with my wife and how we got to know each other, is little things. Like, this may seem kind of childish, but me personally, if you go into my restroom in any of my bathrooms, you're going to find the toilet paper. Okay, this is something that seems pretty frivolous, but you're going to find the toilet paper always rolling in a figure 9. That means the toilet paper comes from the back of the roll, not the front of the roll. Okay, so if I go visit your house and I go use your bathroom and I go to use your toilet paper and I hit it and it rolls forward instead of backwards, that pisses me off. Stupid, minimal, but my wife knows that. So when she changes the toilet paper rolls here in the house, guess which way they flow? Backwards. They flow from the back out, because I don't like my toilet paper touching the ground. And when you pull it over the top, it's easier for it to touch the floor. And I'm not trying to do my thing with no toilet paper coming off the floor. Okay? Now this seems a little childish, but that's just who I am as a person. So if I'm gonna date you, that's something you gotta know about me. So if I'm coming over your crib and every time I go use your bathroom, your toilet paper's rolling the wrong way, that's pissing me off.
Right.
Very minor, but significant. Because if we have an argument about something larger, then I'm going to end up saying, you know what? You don't even know how to put the toilet paper on the roll. So now that seems so insignificant, and we arguing about something major, and I bring up the toilet paper thing, and now my female is like, this dude is going nuts because he arguing over toilet paper now? See, but if we were together for any period of time, that's something that you would know about me. And we all have those small things, like, you know, that sort of thing that you won't get to know if you living in your space and she's living in her space, and then y'all try to get together and now y'all trying to get married, trying to jump the broom. And it's difficult once you've done that to then get over those things that you know your significant other don't like because you don't care. Yeah. It's like, we're already married now. Get over it.
All right. So would you say that this is true or false? Do you think it's harder for our generations to find a genuine relationship, or was it harder back then?
I think it's harder now because there are more distractions. Because back then, the main distraction were just individual distractions. Part of why we're in Arizona is because, part of why I'm in Arizona is because I wanted to start a family, and I come from a family with 9 boys. You know, basically my whole family's all boys. Okay, there's my mom and my aunt. So I got like all these uncles, and there's my mom and my aunt. So I figured when I started having kids, I'm probably gonna have all boys. So I grew up in a family with 3 boys. At least I'm gonna have 3 kids. So what do I have? 3 boys. So having grown up in Chicago, which is a really rough place, I figured I want my boys to have a chance to succeed in life without having all of those negative things following them that you have in the city of Chicago. That's why we moved here to Arizona, to give them an opportunity in order for them to have a better life as they, you know, as they get older. Whereas, you know, now in today's society, you got, you know, phones that are computers, you got computers that are the size of, you know, tablets, you got, you know, TV, satellite, you got cameras on your phones where people are videotaping you out in public, where you just walking around and you might be saying friendly things to some female, and then one of your girlfriends see you just having a conversation and she's taping you talking to some other female at the mall while y'all were just in passing. Now she's giving that video to your girlfriend. Whereas before it'd be like, you know, I saw such and such in the mall, he was talking to this girl. Oh, do you know the girl? No, I don't, but she was really pretty. So now you got to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on tape talking to the girl.
Yeah.
And that gets back to your lady.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to explain that to your lady. So I think now it's much tougher than it was back in the day.
Well, so let's take that scenario, that same scenario. I think I see where you're coming from, but someone made a point that I asked the same question to, and they said, well, no, today you just have more evidence. Back then, they didn't have all this technology, so you don't have all this evidence. And that's why now you're coming to find out, like, years later, that person was actually cheating for the last 15 years. They just didn't know it because they didn't have the cameras back then. Mm-hmm. So would you say that it's easier, or is it like more people are getting caught because of how easily there's so much cameras around and you could easily like catch someone in the actual act, then instead of back then where like the person will go to work, probably not come home until late, and then it'll be like years later before you find out that they were cheating. Like, I see where you're coming from, but again, I wouldn't really know. I just think in today's era, it's just there's so much technology and so much ways to catch the person cheating that it seems like nobody's loyal. Cause that's what I hear, like, oh, there's no loyal female, there's no loyal males out there, but it's just so much easier to get caught in the situation.
Well, that's true. That's true because, in order for you to actually get caught, there's got to be some sort of evidence to lead in that direction. And now with the amount of technology, it's easier to get caught up in that sort of situation. So, the question is kind of like, was it easier back then or is it easier now? So from an evidence standpoint, yeah, it's easier to gather evidence now of a person's doing that. But if you're out doing that, then there is no trust.
Yeah.
Then there is no relationship, because if the physical attraction of someone that you're walking through the mall draws you in away from the person that you've established your lifelong quest with, then you shouldn't be with that person that you've established that lifelong quest with, because you ain't down with that person. Mm-hmm. It's obvious, because something as simple as whatever it is that attracts you to another woman is pulling you away from your woman.
Okay.
Now, that don't mean that you are some sort of monk where you don't see beauty, because I joke with my woman all the time that, there ain't but two women on this planet that she would have trouble with. That's Holly Berry and Gladys Knight. Okay? Because I love Gladys Knight and I love Holly Berry. Those two women, if they walked into my life and they was like, come on, Coach D, let's do this, might be a problem there. But see, that ain't gonna happen, okay? Because neither one of those two are coming anywhere in my existence. And if I'm walking through the mall and I see a female that looks like Holly Berry, because there are a lot of them, and I see a female that looks like Gladys Knight, I can see that, but because of my relationship is built on steady ground with my wife, it's not like I'm getting ready to go ooh and go chasing some female that I don't know. She might be a version of Gladys Knight, but she might be crazy on top of it.
Right.
So see, when you don't have any trust and your relationship isn't strong enough to withstand outside influences, then that's not a person that's kind of your mate.
Okay, so I'll ask the same question I asked you out there. What would be the one lesson that you feel like you've learned since you've been married for the last 32 years?
That you gotta know, you gotta understand, and you gotta feel when you need to shut up.
Okay, break that down a little bit more.
You just gotta know, because at some point when you're in a relationship with another individual, there are gonna be rough times because things interfere. I mean, your kids, finances, your job. There are going to be times when things interfere. And then when you end up in a situation where you feel like your plate is full, you've got to know that your significant other's plate may be running over. Your plate might be full, right, but your significant other's plate may be running over. And if you're not smart enough to recognize that, because you're only interested in your own self-being, then you won't understand how much that other person has on their plate. And then when you start talking, and when you start arguing, and when you start being forceful, that just creates more problems because now that plate isn't just running over, it's falling over. So sometimes you just got to know when to just shut up and then just let the other person get whatever it is out that they got to get out. And you'll find that a lot of times once they get off their chest what they got to get off their chest, if there is no conversation coming back from you, in some cases that just makes it that much easier to get over whatever hurdle you guys are going through.
All right, second to last question. How important would self-understanding be? So understanding who you are before you get into any type of relationship, because all the stuff that you're saying, to be able to recognize those things, you also have to recognize within yourself, like, okay, what can I tolerate? What's my limit? How, like, what situations do I get into to where it's not healthy? How important is self-understanding and basically working on yourself before you get into a relationship? How important is that?
Oh, that is major important. That's major important because you got to understand who you are before you start to accept the differences in somebody else. I mean, it's real simple because, again, when it comes down to individuals are very selfish.
Right.
Okay. And so, and sometimes individuals can be very stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So materialistically, a lot of folks get hung up on things. And I can look at your relationship with your woman and I could see all the things in your relationship that I want in mine, but I don't have. You guys got a big crib. You guys got, 2 cars. You guys got jet skis. You guys got, y'all go to the gun range. All those things that you guys do that, attract me to want to be like the two of you, and we don't have half that stuff. So now I'm envious. Mm-hmm. Okay. And because I don't understand how deep my envy goes, now that affects my relationship with my woman because I'm in a situation where I'm mad at her because we don't have the things that y'all have.
Yeah.
And that's because I don't understand me. Okay. Now, if I understand how silly I am when it comes to those personal things, now I can be a better man for my lady, because what I'm saying to myself is that's really stupid that I'm mad at her because I don't have what you have. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know how to decipher that. Mm-hmm. And they will bring that home with them because I'm at work, I'm working my you-know-what off, and I'm trying to get me a new whatever. And then here Joe comes in the office and says, boy, I just bought me a brand new Honda Gold Wing and we're hitting the road this weekend and going up to Prescott. And I've been wanting a Honda Gold Wing for the past 20 years. And now this dude that I know don't make as much money as me, he ain't as successful as I am, he's got something I don't have.
Yeah.
So now I'm going home and I'm upset because of this stupidity on something that's materialistic. And I walk in the house and my lady's preparing dinner and she making hamburgers. And it's Tuesday. And she know I like Polishes on Tuesday. I got a hot meal waiting for me. I got my family that loves me waiting for me. And I come home and I got an attitude about some trash. And now we're fighting over something really stupid. That's because I don't understand myself enough to know that that's a problem within me and I can't take it out on everybody else. And a lot of people don't have the ability to decipher that because, we just don't have the ability to understand what's important to us, because what's important to us makes us who we are. And you have to know yourself before you can accept somebody else into your circle, because when you know it's you that's the problem, you can fix it a whole lot easier when you're not blaming somebody else for it.
Okay. Last question. What would be your advice to the younger cats who are trying to either get in a relationship, either get married, or are struggling with their relationship? What kind of advice would you give those young people?
Okay. Whether or not they're heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, trisexual, whatever your situation is, find someone that looks through the same prism that you do. If you can find someone that aspires to the same things that make you happy, then it's easier to get over all of that stuff that's outside of your house that's going to be a distraction to you. because they're going to be distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And get together with that individual and stay with them for a period of time to where you get to understand and know who they are as an individual before you decide that you guys are going to get married. Because if some of those other things come out that you don't like after you get married, you probably won't stay together very long. Simple. I mean, if you're a Christian and you fall in love with someone that's a Muslim,
Right.
but y'all so in love that don't matter to you, or if you're black and you fall in love with someone that's white, but that don't matter to you, and y'all get married. Now, at some point, the issues associated with that relationship with the people around you are going to become a problem, okay? Because your Christian people, her Muslim people, your black people, her white people, whatever the case is, they may not be down with your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to affect your relationship? Because at some point, your relationship has to be strong enough within itself to withstand all of those outside issues. And those outside issues are coming into your house.
Right.
And your love has to be strong enough to withstand those. And how do you know that in the first 6 months, or the first year, or the first 2 years, or the first 3 years? That's difficult. So, again, this is maybe go against biblical teachings,
Mm-hmm.
but I think young people need to get together, live with each other, where it's their world only, so they can figure out what each other likes and dislikes are, so then you can determine whether or not this is a person that I can coexist with for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 60 years, whatever that time frame is. And it's difficult to do that in the first couple of months, because in the first couple of months, you're so in love with each other that nothing else matters. But at some point, other things come into play, and you got to be able to deal with those. And not all the time can you deal with them.
Okay, let me ask you this question. So the whole living situation, so I am a Christian. I don't believe in that whole aspect of living together, but it's for this reason for me, and I want to see what your thought process is behind it. So when it comes to the whole sex situation, right? Sex is a very powerful thing. Like, sex can be a very beautiful thing. Sex can be a very manipulative thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of with our society and generation, sex has kind of become just kind of a nonchalant thing, but it's actually not a nonchalant thing. I think sex actually creates this connection that you don't really know about. And so when you're living with someone, you're a lot more tempted to have sex with them, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of times sex ends up creating this what do you call it? A gloss over your eye, right? So like a lot of the things that they're doing doesn't really matter, because especially if you're enjoying the sex too, it's like, okay, well, a lot of people, it's weird because a lot of people stay in a relationship nowadays because of the sex, because they want to have someone to be there to go fulfill this thing. Again, it comes to self-worth and understanding yourself, right? So if you don't love yourself enough, then you are always trying to seek this thing. And so what is your aspect when it's like, okay, because now that gets even blurry, because you're basically married without the actual title or actually going through the process of getting married. Because I think sex kind of unites two people together. And so what is your thought process behind that?
When you look at society as a whole,
Right.
you have situations where people get disjointed or disconnected or fall out of love or divorce, whatever the relationship is, and they go their separate ways because of things that draw them apart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one of the biggest issues in a relationship is finances.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you're in a financial situation where you can't afford to pay your bills, that creates a lot of arguments.
Right.
Because, okay, the car payment's coming due and it's $250 and we ain't got but $220.
Right.
So somehow we got to come up with $30, or else, if we keep doing this, we're going to end up a whole car payment, in 6 months behind, or we're going to need to come up with a bunch of money to pay these car payments. That's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you run into issues with finances where people argue all the time. One of the other big issues is infidelity,
Mm-hmm.
where people are out doing whatever they're doing and they're not being, monogamous with their loved one, and that's causing problems. So between finances and sex, I don't know which of the two of those things are higher on the list of what causes relationships to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at finances, you either got the money or you don't.
Right.
Okay. When you look at sex, you either good at it or you not.
Right.
Okay. So if it's because you ain't making enough scratch, then you might end up breaking up because y'all can't pay y'all bills. If you a whack lover, meaning either the woman or the guy, then at some point it's gonna be, this ain't doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if it ain't doing it for you, then whether you making enough money or not, you probably ain't gonna make it.
Right.
Because if you ain't doing it for me, and at some point, because we're humans and we're fragile and we're weak, I'm probably gonna go out and try to find me someone that does it for me.
Yeah.
And if I go out and find someone that does it for me, guess what's gonna happen? Our relationship's probably gonna fall apart because I'm out running the street because I found somebody that does it for me. So for me, just me personally, I'm not trying to get on no soapbox against anyone
Right.
and what their thoughts are. If you can't satisfy your spouse or your girlfriend in whatever the situation is, you need to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Because going into that relationship, again, those two things that break you up the most is sex and finances. So if you as a young man, you meet a young lady that you just head over heels with, but you find out that because of who she is as a sexual partner, you just can't satisfy her,
Mm-hmm.
then in your own heart of hearts, is that a person you're going to marry? Because you know how much you love her.
Right.
But in your own heart of hearts, you know you can't satisfy her. And at some point, that's going to become a problem. And it ain't about y'all having kids or that sort of thing, because you can still make babies even though she's not satisfied.
Yeah.
But if you can't satisfy her because she is got some issues that you just can't get to, then how long before that relationship falls apart? You need to know that before you say I do. She needs to know that before you say I do. Because when you say I do, then that means you are supposed to be able to satisfy each other in all those aspects that you're trying to work towards to make your union work. And again, those two issues, finances and sex. You cannot hide the financial part of your problems because they're going to come to the fore. And if you ain't bringing it the way you supposed to, or she ain't bringing it the way she's supposed to, that will become an issue. And you need to know that before you guys say I do. And, I understand the whole spiritual part of being in love with each other, because that's important. But if you ain't hitting that G spot, at some point that's going to be a problem. At some point that's going to be a problem, and that's just being realistic.
Yeah.
It's not being gouty or nasty or any of that stuff. It may not just be you not hitting the G spot. It's just that you just not doing it for that person. So now you 3 years into your relationship, and now y'all down to sex once a month because you just ain't feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And now some dude walks into her office and he looks just like you. And she's looking at him and she's like, oh my God, there go my man 3 years ago. And maybe he can hit the G spot. Guess what's probably going to happen at some point in time? So I'm saying, so
Yeah.
you got to know that going in, whether or not satisfactory, both of you guys are on the same page. Now, that requires work on both ends, okay? Because there are some things that you can do to help. There's some things she can do to help. But if it gets to a point where y'all just not compatible, then that's going to be one of those issues where you guys end up in divorce court. And that's unfortunate because you should have figured that out before you said I did. I'm just being realistic.
Oh yeah, I know.
I'm just being realistic. And see, so when you add the whole biblical aspect to it, the Christian aspect to it, it basically says that that's something that you shouldn't be doing, because you shouldn't do that, because sex is something that's looked at as a procreative thing in order for the species to continue, not to be something that's done out of lust or need. Well, I understand that aspect of religion as well, but how many of us actually go into a sexual situation out of wanting to make babies? Most of it is done because of lust and need.
Right.
Okay, so if you need more or she needs more and you ain't bringing it or she ain't bringing it, how long will that last?
But the biblical aspect, I say, well, I think that's what people assume of that, like to where it's only to reproduce. But no, I think it was actually made to be exactly what we all understand it to be, a beautiful thing, an enjoyable thing for the both parties, but the thing under the correct confine, right? And so that's where I get what you're saying, but I still do understand it. It's like having a foundation, right, to be able to create that beautiful thing that comes with communication. But I think because then, like, what? So what? You're gonna not enjoy it with that one person? Be like, all right, well, that's not gonna work out for me, and then go try it out with someone else. I think that's when, because then you're creating these bonds unintentionally, because the other person might have enjoyed it a lot. You might have hated it, but the other person might have had a great time, and so now they have this connection towards you, and it probably takes them years to overcome that feeling towards you. So it just creates a lot of I don't want to say soul ties, but these kind of ties to one another that you don't really fully know, that just because you're not feeling it doesn't mean someone else isn't experiencing those like emotional ties. So I don't know. That's an intriguing topic in itself.
Yeah, because it's about it. That's why I say, for me personally, you have to get to know the person that you're gonna make your quote soulmate or your wife or your husband, because y'all got to be on the same page in a lot of aspects of things that will change over time. I mean, these things will change over time. Like, you know, now that I'm in my 50s, sex to me is still important, but not really. Because as far as I'm concerned now, the new sex is a paid off car. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's more sexy than sex itself. You know, and a bigger sexual move for me is the paid off house. You know what I'm saying? That's more important now. That's because, you know, when you do the bell curve, you guys know about the bell curve because y'all college graduates. You got that bell curve, right? And as you're going up that bell curve, all right, see, when you do the bell curve and it flattens out, you guys are over here on the bell curve. You ain't even started up the path yet. Y'all still on the ground, okay? So your first 5 years of marriage, you're probably on the 1 inch mark of the bell curve. Okay, you don't get to the top of the bell curve when you talk about your marriage till you get about the 15-year mark. Because after 15 years of being married, you know everything there is to know about your woman after 15 years. Okay, and it probably takes about 5 to 7 years to get to know everything there is that you need to know about your woman. Now, you may be hiding stuff from her, but it only takes her about 3 years to get to know everything there is about you. Because men are transparent. Women are very hard to read. Okay, so what you may think is real, she may be looking at like it's phony. Okay, but she may not even say anything to you about that because she understands your nature, so she just letting you get away with some stupidity because she loves you. Okay, so in about the 7 or 8 year mark, when she feels comfortable, she gonna come out and tell you that's trash, and you're gonna be like, what? You've been letting me get away with this for all these years and you think that's trash? Yes, because now I feel like we've been together long enough for me to be honest enough with you so you can know that I know that that's BS. And you're gonna be sitting there like, man, how did she get, how does she know this? Because women mature by the age of 15 to 18. Men don't mature till they get into their late 20s. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not fiscally, that doesn't mean that you're not psychologically, that doesn't mean that you're not a grown-up. that just means that we mature at a much later rate than women.
Mm-hmm.
Because 10 women could walk in this room right now with me, you, and Meech standing here
Right.
and not know us. And out of that 10 women, 3 to 5 of them will say to themselves which one of us that they choose and which one of us will be their husband. Not knowing us at all.
Really?
Not knowing us at all. They have that sort of keen sense of understanding. And then what they would do is they will go about figuring out how to make that happen over the next several years while you sitting back thinking that's just your homegirl because she knows somebody else you know. While she in the background plotting and scheming that he the one for me and he don't even know it. But I know it.
Yeah.
This is how smart women are and how stupid we are. Okay? So that's why I say there's not one person for any one person. There are thousands and thousands of people that you can set up your situation with, and y'all can be, y'all can be happy over a long period of time, just simply because you guys are on the same page. It just takes a while to get in the same book. And once you get in the same book, that's what that relationship is all about. That's what building that relationship is all about. And once you get in the same book, then you guys get on the same page, you get on the same chapter, and then you start to build your story.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, young man. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast.
Oh, for sure, man.
Absolutely love it.
I appreciate it. Hey, as always, man, thank y'all for checking out another episode of Mrs. and Mr. Right. As always, God loves you. I love you. God bless and stay safe. Thank y'all. Love y'all.
Don't start.